This is a January 11th Toledo Planning Commission, and I will call it to order. And at this time, I will ask for a roll call, and we'll just take it by voice, starting with the end of the table here.
Brian Lundgren here.
Jonathan Mix.
Laura Warfield.
Ann Ellis.
Ricky Dyson.
Ruth Ann Morris.
Terry Nyman.
Okay, thank you. We're all here, and hopefully everyone's all set to have a really good meeting. The visitors, we have one visitor, and then the other person is my husband, just in case anybody's wondering. So do you have something that you want to talk about besides?
Katie's not really a visitor.
Yeah, I'm a rare member serving at the City of Toledo Hall.
Oh, wonderful.
And so that stands for Resource Assistance for Rural Environments. And I'm just excited to be here and witness the plan.
And I didn't catch your name?
It's Katie.
Katie.
Yeah.
Hi, Katie.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Okay, okay. So at this point in time, we will approve the minutes of December 14th as circulated and reviewed.
I'll move in that.
Okay, I would do that. I did notice that there is one correction that needs to be done. And it's on the second page of the public hearing. It's just the fourth paragraph. I already told Arlene about it. It's just newly created. It's just a tense thing is all it is. So with that noted, we will take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll do that.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. So the motions are up for a motion to approve. Everybody that's in favor, say yes.
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 So the motion is approved. So at this point in time, we go into a work session and over the comprehensive land use plan. And we have in our packet, and I think Justin will walk us through it.
Yeah. Start the conversation. So this is just a continuation of going through the comprehensive plan chapters. So this week or last month, we did a quick introduction of the transportation chapter, but we didn't really get into a lot of details yet, just because it was the holidays. We had a long meeting ahead before that, so we kind of punted that to this meeting. So this includes two chapters, but the second chapter here, energy conservation, is a much shorter chapter of the comp plan. So the comp plan's been formatted into the same format as the rest of the chapters now as well. So the transportation chapter was actually updated in 2013. At the same time, the transportation system plan was done. So that typically transportation system plans are done every it can vary, but 10 to 20 years. Those are completed. So we're kind of towards the point where the city will start to think about updating that transportation system plan, so that when that's updated, these policies will also be updated.
Okay.
And that's making
Somebody swooshing? Somebody's sweeping a floor somewhere.
might be. It looks like it's our sound making it.
Ruth Ann, I put you on mute, so you'll need to unmute when you're ready to talk.
Okay.
Echo. So these policies and goals were, they're older, but not as old as some of the other chapters within the comprehensive plan. So I'll kind of start reading through not all of this, but just to provide some context. We have a little introduction. So planning for a transportation system that is able to move people and goods safely, efficiently, cost effectively, and reliably can be a challenging endeavor. Much of this work is accomplished through the Transportation System Plan, or TSP is how I'll refer to it from now on, which provides direction, identifies needs, and addresses transportation related issues associated with development, consistent with the requirements of statewide planning goal 12. So the what you'll see in a TSP, and it's available on the website, but it's kind of an inventory of kind of all the existing systems within the city, and it looks at not just single family occupancy vehicles, but also train, so rail, air, by water, multimodal. So it looks at pedestrian, bike infrastructure as well. So it's supposed to be a comprehensive plan. So looking at all modes of transportation. And then it'll include a lot of the times what you see in a TSP is a list of projects, and some of those projects might not be finished within the period because there's, if you look at the cost of the total projects, it's often very high, but that's why there's a prioritization system within the TSP in terms of which projects to get done. So kind of one thing in the context I wanted to kind of highlight, which I think is something that seems to always come up in the conversations and came up a lot in our housing conversations as well. But there's the transportation patterns in Toledo. There's quite a bit between Toledo and Newport. So you'll see a lot of the goals and policies kind of go back to that. So thinking of ways to kind of reduce the burden of that transportation route. And actually one of the projects in the TSP, which I can't off the top of my head describe the details, but one of them is actually intersection improvements at Business Highway 20 and Highway 20. So that's kind of one as an example of something that might be included within the transportation system plan. But then that
The east or west entrance.
by Dairy Queen West.
Yes.
Yeah.
west entrance. Mhm.
So that's just kind of an example of what the TSP looks like, and all of these goals and policies are ways to kind of implement that. So I'm not going to read each of these, but I want to highlight some, and then we can, if anyone had specific comments in certain sections. So the first goal is a multimodal system. So provide a safe and efficient multimodal transportation system, provides linkages in a manner that enhances Toledo's neighborhoods, environment, economy, and social and scenic values. And then in policy 2, I wanted to kind of highlight item C there, support programs to reduce the single occupancy trips for commuters to Newport and other Lincoln County and Benton County areas. And that was in terms of goal 1, kind of the main thing I wanted to highlight. I have some more changes and edits within the second goal, but were there any comments within on the goal 1 policies?
Do we, at this stage, do we want to talk about specific proposals or just leave it at general?
Well, you can mention a specific proposal, but with the comp plan, we're kind of at the high level, thinking more broadly, not necessarily diving into the engineering or design of a specific project. But if this is the time to provide, if you do have comments on kind of something, an issue in terms of the transportation network you see.
Yeah, because as we have it now, really the only thing that's public transportation is the bus, right?
Mhm.
Has anybody ever thought of maybe supporting a ferry from Toledo to Newport?
So that actually is one of the policies. I have to find it though. It's in goal 7 transit.
Okay.
There's a policy 7 talks about a water taxi service. Actually, there's a typo there. It says tax service. Water taxi service, encourage local and regional partners to explore long-term feasibility of a water taxi or ferry service. So
Okay.
someone did think about it, but not,
The scenic route.
yeah, not every policy in here will be implemented, but it's kind of getting these out there. So when it comes time to if it got to the point of implementation, we could point to the policy in the comp plan to support
Okay,
that project, but that's,
thank you.
I have
Okay.
a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question after.
Oh, okay. Under the policy 2, right there under goal 1, where encourage options other than the personal automobile for transportation services. Is that the gist of some of this is to try to limit vehicles? I mean, I guess I wasn't sure.
yeah,
I took that as more carpooling, you know, instead of people just, not trying to limit, but just trying to consolidate. Like the park and ride type of thing. That's how I
Is that
interpreted it.
what, I mean,
No.
because just like when you said support programs to reduce the single occupancy trips
mhm.
for commuters to Newport and other Lincoln County and Benton County areas.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's more to provide other options for people, because right now kind of the if you look at the ACS data or just anecdotally, most people are just driving in between. So it's to provide additional options and making sure that those options are safe. Because a lot of the time you have kind of the focus of our transportation system has been for vehicles, but if you want to maybe walk around the neighborhood, you might not have sidewalks or a safe crossing or so the hope is not necessarily to make it so you can't drive anymore, but making sure that
I took
No,
personal to go
and I
to
wasn't
D, if you look at,
thinking per se about
Yeah.
where you couldn't drive, but I didn't know. I guess when I had read this, I thought, is that, I don't know, maybe I don't even really want to verbalize that.
I mean, I
Um,
think that's a common picture land use planning.
Isn't it
Try
to help
to reduce the
to
cars,
facilitate
facilitate other options.
sidewalks and bike lanes and stuff like that, perhaps?
Because we had bad weather, this past weekend, I called the Newport Sheriff's Office and they told me that there's 5 bridges between here and there, and if they go out, we can't drive that road at all on 101.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing on a workday morning traffic being less. I mean, that'd be fine. But I think that unfortunately there's other causes of that, so
Of the
traffic.
Yeah,
And I don't think the intent is to regulate. We got to reduce the cars. I think it's just kind of to provide other options. But yeah, it is kind of cool.
I think it'd be a good idea if there was some way to have the other options and reduce particularly traffic on Route 20 there, go between Newport and Toledo. Because if you drive that at night, that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and I guess another thing I'm wondering, is this possibly looking at maybe being a partnership between Toledo and Newport? If you're, like you said, water taxi or whatever additional transportation options there might be, generally it seems to fall between Toledo and Newport.
yeah.
I mean, if there was some collective thing that the two cities agreed on in an IGA, this goal could support that.
Mhm.
You could point to this goal as making it consistent with the statewide land use planning goals. But it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will be that.
Right, yeah.
No, I think you bring up a good point about coordinating, because we have a policy about coordinating, and it right now it just talks about Lincoln County ODOT, but it doesn't specifically name Newport in that policy, so I think that's something that we could add. Newport's actually, I don't know, I'd have to double check where they currently are, but they're in the process of a TSP update
Okay.
now. And I don't know if have you heard anything from them about in terms of coordinating? Okay, yeah. So I think there might be opportunity to for staff to scan the Newport TSP to see what they have there. Because I think that coordination is important, and there is a policy in here about rideshare parking lots as well. Kind of if it was more clear kind of on where those were in town and they were promoted, maybe that, I mean, maybe it's only a few cars, but it can provide somewhat of a reduction in terms of traffic. And then there is some benefit to those that do carpool in terms of you reduce the amount that you're spending.
That's a good point, because the parking lot where 34, they're at 34 and I-5. Kind of heading
Oh, yeah,
out of Corvallis.
yeah,
That parking lot is always full.
it is. It's used, that's used a
Always
lot.
full, and I've used that.
Yeah.
Now, where do you go? Do you take the bus? Because I was going to mention the fact that other Lincoln County and Benton County areas, because I had an issue of trying, if you just want to go one way over to Albany, it's hard to do cost effectively. You know, and even the taxis, and I found out that the medical transportation, there's a county line thing where for insurance and medical reasons, they don't cross that. And I think there was only one place that could take a person, you know, across the county line, you know, and so I would like to see that as well as Newport enforced, you know, going to the east
Mhm.
also. And I don't know if we could use a word other than personal, individual. Would that make you feel?
Oh, it's not really
Yeah.
that I have, I just,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
I can't really explain really what I was.
yeah, I hear where you're
thinking on
going. Yeah,
that, but-
I always took it just as the,
Yeah.
you know, other stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, it would be nice, and you know that. It's the HUT shuttle that takes people to the airport.
Yes.
I've caught that in Corvallis, and it
Yeah.
only goes from Corvallis to the airport.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if Toledo had something like that too.
Yeah,
that you had,
we were looking at that issue.
you know, a lot of people go to the airport.
Yeah.
When we were going to the airport, we were away
Yeah.
for a month and trying to find a way where I didn't have to take my car, park it, and pay
Right,
$200 for
park it
parking.
somewhere, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd love to be able to just hop on a bus and just take me to the airport.
yeah. It would get to when Dwayne moved down this, it would take less time for him to take the HUT shuttle up to the airport, and he'd be on the plane by the time I would even get home, by the time you go
Oh.
up and drop somebody
Oh,
off
yeah.
and come back. So,
Mhm.
okay.
So, one other thing. In the future, sometime in the future, I'd like to be able to suggest that we do something with the railroad. We do have a line that goes all the way out to the east. It's not used except by Georgia Pacific, but I'd like to see at least some mention of that idea. Maybe something that'll come from the Siletz land and at the end of Studevant there, all the way through. It's sort of a tourist attraction. Salt Lake City has a great, or not Salt Lake, but Provo in Utah has a system where they have just an old steam train that runs up the valley and then comes down. It's all scenic and so on, just like we are here, and it's packed every day.
I think there's some regulation that has been just proposed in the past. And I don't know if they've run up against the fact that with the line and who runs the line, and because they did that one year as a special thing, you know, they had to, do you
We
remember
wrote
that?
that train.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
We
and-
wrote it from Corvallis or Albany to here.
Yes,
But isn't there a problem with who owns that line?
that was my
And doesn't
understanding.
like Southern
Maybe so.
Pacific have, they have like precedence
Yeah, and
for that line?
Yeah,
they're, yeah, railroads with like for Amtrak, for example, they're in terms of priority, they're behind freight traffic. There would be that challenge. That doesn't prevent us from putting like a high level policy that would be, because there are a couple policies around supporting businesses and being an intermodal hub, but I don't think there's anything that I can think of around like more of a just more of a scenic route to increase tourism. We don't have a policy, so that's something we could definitely add if there was interest.
Because I think if we're looking to increase the tourist traffic here in Toledo, something like that could be very useful because, you know, what do? You sell food or something on the trip, and because it's a beautiful scenic route.
There's a train that runs from Lebanon, Sweet Home. And back. That
Lebanon to
Sweet Home,
Sweet Home.
and I've seen it packed with people standing up
Yeah,
Yeah,
on a car.
yeah, it would be a wonderful thing.
Mhm.
it'd be great if we could.
The scheduling and the rights would be yeah.
I'm finding somebody that wants to jump through those hoops to set up the business to do it.
Yeah, get somebody to open it up. The line out to the end of Studevant there needs, you know, upgrading. I think they do about 5 miles an hour, allow about 5 miles an hour along there. So I've heard from Barry Brewster, and he talked to Georgia Pacific about who owns what and so on. And there is some issues. But nevertheless, in the future, just like the water taxi idea, you know, we could put a paddle wheeler on the river.
I think there is one down, I think they rent it out for like a bed and breakfast. Don't they?
Yeah, right.
They fire that thing up.
South Beach.
Just fire it up and get
Yeah.
it going. Yeah, but anyway, I'm thinking if we're talking about transportation and on the looking at things as a in the broader sense, how does it help Toledo if we're just putting in parking lots? How does the city develop if you put in parking lots, you're still using the personal transportation again. And maybe we can get somebody to talk about increasing the bus routes out to the east. You know, it only really works a couple of times a year.
My guess is that limitation is related to the funding source, because as a
Did
county,
it again, I can't hear.
it's related to the funding source. As a county attorney for Lynn County, you get a federal grant to the state that kicks it to the county, that then kicks it to nonprofits or
Yeah, I wanted
the senior center and senior home to run these public shuttles. And that's the equivalent of what you guys are doing. So I think it's federal, state money running through your county. And they may have directive that it's for county residents because of that, and may not want to cross east. That's my guess,
quite possibly.
but
But I'm just trying to think of how we can make this into a broader approach instead of just transportation. What does transportation mean to Toledo? Aside from the individual citizens, what does it mean to Toledo if we choose some other form of transportation?
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful if you had somebody that got a paddle boat and wanted, you ran weekend shuttles up this direction and they had a place,
Down the type of transportation you're talking
go
about.
back, but
Yeah. Personal transportation, business transportation, work transportation, tourist transportation. Yeah,
yeah,
A boat with some music.
a boat with some music that goes fast.
Oh, make it slow,
There you go.
make them gamble or something.
Make them gamble.
But
yeah,
as we look at these issues for Toledo, I just don't want to limit our imagination to just how do we slow down the traffic and, some thinking a little bigger than just going through the list.
yeah.
See, it would be nice.
We can just find some millionaire to be prepared to pay for it.
Oh, they're going to Mars. They're getting out of here. Is there any other comments about this?
So that was kind of, I had only highlighted a couple of the full ones, so I want to highlight a few others if that's okay. We kind of merged into a few other goals, but so the second goal is around public works. There was a new one added here around diverse revenue sources. So ensure a diverse set of revenue sources, I should say, probably are available to maintain and improve the existing transportation system. And then another policy I wanted to highlight, which actually something that the public works staff has started to do more and has an emphasis on, but develop a coordinated approach to the operation, development, and maintenance of transportation systems by linking the construction and maintenance of roadways to the construction and maintenance of other public utilities. So kind of at the same time, you have to rip up the road to replace water sewer, then kind of coordinating that with the road improvements as well. And that's something that Bill with Public Works has started to do. So kind of that you don't have to go back in and tear up the road later if you put new pavement and sidewalks over an old water sewer system. And then policy 6 here, new, but natural and green infrastructure. So this is just encourage the use of natural and green infrastructure to improve flooding resiliency, natural shade, treat stormwater, and other benefits, including the use of bioswales and street trees. So it's just, this isn't a mandate, but just kind of an encouraging. And then I didn't have any changes to the development and land use objectives, but for street systems, there are a couple additions. So policy 2 was added to state education, awareness, and enforcement, partner across agencies and departments to improve transportation system safety education, build awareness, and ensure enforcement across the community. And then emergency service access. So coordinating with the fire department to make sure there's adequate emergency service access. So we do that when new building permits come in, but continuing that coordination and also identifying areas where there might need to be improvements for better access. And one policy which kind of brings up a change that may be of interest to the city down the road, but low speed residential areas maintain the character of Toledo's neighborhoods by encouraging local streets that ensure safe and efficient traffic flows, but which are designed to encourage low speeds and minimize traffic impacts within residential neighborhoods. So not just residential neighborhoods, but across the board. It used to be really strictly regulated by ODOT in terms of the change of speeds on streets, but they're there is now a change where cities can take over more control about the residential speeds. So if there's a street where it needs to be lowered potentially, there's more potential than, because it used to take a speed study going to ODOT and kind of some back and forth.
Is that bill that they just passed a couple weeks ago, that the speed limits are within local jurisdictions?
Yeah.
That's that one.
But yeah, city would have to apply though to take that over through the program is my understanding, but then you have more control. So if 35 is maybe too fast for a certain street.
I was just gonna ask, what do they consider lows? Is there a definition of what low speed is? Is that 5, 15, 10?
I've seen a lot of cities have started to go like in residential areas from 25 to 20.
Okay.
So just lowering that speed by 5. But that's just something I wanted to highlight, but
Are you talking about putting in speed bumps or something like that?
that could be an option. I think Bill put in speed bumps recently.
He was talking about it. I don't know
Yeah.
if they've been done yet.
Yeah. So that,
Oh, by the way, just by the side, I live on French Avenue. We just had a repave. Those guys do a great job. That redid French. They did all the new water line and that sort of thing. They're very good. Looks great.
You know, it even looks wider when you go by.
Yeah.
You gotta look real quick.
So I have a question. Where did Bill put the speed bumps in? You said there are some new speed bumps.
I don't think he's put them in yet.
Oh, okay.
I think he's talked about it, Commissioner, and I can't think of what the name of the road was. It was by a park.
it was near Kari, I think, down, but I don't know. If that was more of a public works project, so I briefly saw
Do we need to approve those sort of things, or is that?
Bill would approve them. Yeah, the public works director. And then moving on, I'm on, the pages are all weird because it's actually the pages of the whole comp plan. But policy 11 there, I added a little bit about developing performance standards to evaluate street systems. So it talks about the functional classification. So it kind of between.
That's good when, especially every time, I think about that every time I go up Arcadia Drive and it's a collector. It's a main collector, that little narrow thing on our plan of,
Yeah.
yeah.
So thinking of ways that of the different functional classifications and how they can be better evaluated. And then I didn't have any changes to the bike head goal. I did want to verify one thing to make sure it was still the best practice. But policy 3 talks about the bike lane requirement in terms of the speeds. I want to just verify that. So if there is a change, we can make that to meet the most up-to-date standards.
What's 3,000 ADT? What is that?
Average daily traffic.
Traffic, okay.
Yeah. I believe it's traffic.
Yeah, sounds, that
Yeah.
looks.
But yeah, we can actually, that's a good point too. We can spell that out. And then something that's come up quite a bit lately is policy 11, safety education. And this is also something that I'll mention later too, to talk about like safe routes to school, that there's more emphasis than there was 10 years ago on safe routes to school programs. So kind of highlighting that, and it could almost be safety education and infrastructure. So kind of both. And then policy 15 on the next page. I changed it to fitness walking because there was the Volksmark, which it was German, for like,
Oh.
for fitness walking. It's a type of program that they had. But I thought it was easier just to say, unless there's anyone that wants to keep it the same, but it was in the previous comp plan, it was defined, but it's basically a fitness walking
Where's the route?
route. I don't think there is one yet.
Oh.
They wanted to.
It'd be nice.
Could walk the trail up behind the library.
Yeah. That's what I would-
Versus.
I've done that once, only once.
No, but they have that trail there by the city
Yeah.
shops that takes you to the train tracks.
Yeah, along the side there.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean,
It's
what
nice.
little bit that is,
It is,
it's
and-
nice, because you're right by the slough and
Mhm.
it's nice, but it's small. It'd be nice if we had. But then, of course, it kind of attaches to what the port has put together with the.
That's all
Oh,
fairly
yeah.
flat though.
Yeah.
I think for fitness, they wanna do a, like Brian was saying, but yeah,
Climb a hill.
yeah, climb a hill.
Let's go up Graham Street,
There you
Yeah.
go.
down Graham Street.
But though, I think I've got into transit and rail a little bit. I'll think of adding a policy in the rail section around a scenic route. But there are, the rail policies right now are retaining rail crossing, minimizing noise impacts, pedestrian crossings, regional coordination, agency coordination. So that kind of is related to the scenic route, essentially, public crossings. And then there,
What are we looking at?
in an intermodal hubs, page,
I think transit goal 7, isn't that? what-
so I moved to the, sorry, the rail systems goals 8, 9, and 10. There's quite a few,
There we are. Okay, yeah.
there's a couple of policies that I think hit on some of what you talked about, but there's nothing on the scenic route that I see within the existing policies.
What can we do about finding out about that rail issue?
Having a scenic rail,
Who owns those rail lines? Anybody know?
I thought it was Southern Pacific that owned those.
I thought there was, that we can.
Somebody owns them, GP uses them, but somebody else owns them, I think.
Yeah, I think there's somebody else owns the rail lines. I think it's a different group that has the workers on the rail cars. I mean, I think if you're dealing with rail cars and requesting rail cars for shipping, there's 2 or 3 different folks that you have to talk to and pay. And see, I think part of what you'd have to get somebody would have to get a train that's for people, not
Yeah,
cargo.
And then you'd have to schedule it because I think it used to be that the whistle blew at 3, it would be regular when the trains would come in, but now I think they're a little irregular. Not always a regular system. So if you were to try and say, okay, we're gonna have a train every Friday at 3 p.m. and it's gonna return at 7 p.m. Then if all of a sudden somebody wants to GP or somebody needs that track, they have the priority. But I understand you said that not personal, but people are the last down the totem pole as to what they're going to put on those rail cars. Is that?
yeah,
because
freight,
they use the
Yeah,
rail-
freight, thank you. That was. the
Freight,
word.
uh,
Yeah,
typically will have
Freight,
the
freight,
priority.
yeah.
And the GP uses those lines as storage too. They just run the cars up there and sit them there for however many days they want them. So it's, you'd have to be all coordinated.
It would take a lot of time. Somebody would be yeah. I think that's one of the reasons it doesn't get pursued vehemently, funding and time. And who do you talk to?
I
Yeah,
don't know, isn't there a
Yeah.
union of some sort?
probably several.
Yeah, several that you have to
Yeah.
deal with when you're doing rail cars that are
Yeah.
loaded.
So I think of the one, this is Terry, I think of the one that they have that runs from Rockaway to Garibaldi in Tillamook County, because we also have a house up there. And I don't know if it's worth just kind of finding out how they do it and who they, who runs it or whatever. But anyway, in the summer, it's pretty full and they run, quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if it's a certain hours during the day, but it's a big draw. I see a lot of people on it.
The question there would be, what other type of rail traffic do they have between Garibaldi and Rockaway?
Good, right. Good point. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it brings people to Rockaway and Garibaldi.
Probably like Sweet Home in Lebanon, not a lot.
Yeah.
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 Tourist attraction for sure.
Yeah. Not a lot of industrial stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I do have one question on the rail systems policy 7, because it says Tokyo Slough. I don't think it's really called that anymore. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know where it is, if it is called that.
So
It's
Tokyo Slough now.
I think, as far as I know, it's still
I
Tokyo.
think when I was on the boat ride this summer, they referred to it. That was when he told us the history of Tokyo Slough.
Yeah.
Where we were.
Tokyo, the policy
But I don't know what
7,
Where
right
is
here,
officially.
yeah.
whether or not
Well,
Tokyo.
I think it was.
It was where that old mill site
Oh, yeah.
was. If you leave the port, or, down at the port docks and then go around the waterway towards the boatyard, there was an old mill site right there. And that was where that Japanese event happened.
Where the bridge that's closed now, what is that,
Yeah.
First Street? You can't get across there anymore when you walk across there.
Right.
That's Tokyo Slough. That's the Tokyo Slough area.
yeah, it was originally man-made there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually half port, half GP, kind of where the property lines actually run. But since I've been here, I've still heard it referred to as Tokyo Slough, but there is an unfortunate history involved with that site where there were Japanese immigrants that were forced out.
So would a person want to change it because of the incident, or keep the name so that we could remember the incident?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the history.
Yeah. But I'm trying to remember if there's a sign there that says Tokyo Slough when
I don't
we
think
walk
so.
on it.
Nice one.
No.
I walked up and down the mini.
Yeah, I have to, yeah. It's just, I'm usually looking at other stuff,
Looking
signs.
for seals. and-
There you go, looking, yeah. So do we want to find out if that's the official name, or?
I just didn't know where it was, if it was still called that.
Oh, okay.
That's everything I had on the transportation. After if there's any other comments. We'll make those edits and then get that on the website. Article 13 is energy conservation. This is probably one of the shorter chapters in the comp plan.
Hey, actually-
Conserving energy.
So I was gonna ask you about, so I don't know if it'd be in the energy one or the travel one. But for like, charging station.
Yeah, I think that would actually probably go in the transportation one. That's a good point. It should have.
You had a spot there where it was like rain. Something,
Yeah.
I thought that you would have it in there, but that seems more like,
Where,
Plan.
at the charging stations, where we would
Didn't we talk about that
put that in.
recently too, though?
I
I
thought,
remember it being brought up that GP had to pay for having one installed somewhere.
Yeah, there's
But we
two,
didn't
right?
talk about that.
There's two right here. I think it was part of a deal with DEQ that they would install the charging stations right here. But yeah, I think there should be that's something that probably wasn't as talked about in 2013 compared to today.
Would you want to put it in both energy and transportation then? Just mention it twice.
Yeah, I think we could.
Just-
I might be able to work it into an existing policy inside the energy conservation chapter and have a separate policy in the transportation chapter.
I would think the parking lot would be a good spot for a couple.
Mhm.
Because those two.
Yeah,
We got a hybrid. I didn't get one you plug in. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not for long journeys.
They're talking about getting them up to 350, I think.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
And for the energy conservation, there are just a couple items. So under the public education, I also added kind of encouraging homeowners to apply for weatherization programs, other programs available in the region, including programs through the Community Service Consortium. So they have just calling out more specifically the program, but they have for certain levels of income programs that can help you weatherize your house to save energy. And then there will be other probably programs that come up about potentially. And then policy 8 was around energy efficient design. So residential and commercial building code, you have to meet certain standards, but this is kind of talking about encouraging to go above and beyond the minimum. So that you can have there's the leadership in energy and environmental design program where you can get I think that it goes from bronze to platinum, I want to say, in terms of your building design. So just not a mandate here, just kind of encouraging kind of above and beyond residential codes. And then policy 9 was around innovative technology. So this is kind of thinking of the Juno project specifically, but support projects that develop innovative recycling technology by working with the private sector.
Would this be where that Sirius project, that wastewater project was it?
Yeah, I think that would fit within here too, but similar to the Juno, we won't name it maybe specifically, but
No,
yeah, I think so. But those were the only there's a couple of minor text edits in there, but otherwise those were the major changes. Were there any other comments on that section?
Well, I have a question. It's Terry again. When you said we were talking about the energy efficient homes for lower incomes, I always think of my client. So I guess, how would I direct them to seek those kind of help services?
So the Community Service Consortium, on their website, they have
Okay.
they have a tab. I think it's just called weatherization or something.
Okay.
It's relatively easy to find on there.
Okay. All right, I'll go there. Thank you.
I think local utilities like PUD also will have something like that on their website.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other
Is that,
comments?
I have no other comments on this part of it. Now, our building permit and land use activity, we'll go over that on discussion items. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Does anybody else have any comments on this regarding? No.
The city's website has a history of Toledo
Mhm.
that talks about the Tokyo Slough.
There's a very good book that was written. It's a small book. I can't remember the name of it. It's at the Toledo Library.
I read, it's where I read it.
Yeah, 178. It's under like
Yeah, it's a
200
little-
pages, but it's real good and it seems to be well
Research.
well researched. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good book, I think. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so are we gonna move on to discussion items then? If anybody has anything else they'd like to say regarding this? Well, thank you for putting this together and there's some good points in there.
yeah, and I think I'm aiming for the land use chapter 2 and then urbanization chapter 14.
Okay,
We kind of held off on chapter 2 to do kind of, it's a good combination to look at those two chapters at the same time. That's for February. And I think that we didn't have any public hearings come, so they're in the clear.
like that again.
We're just focusing on the work session.
Okay, and if I remember, this is next year that we wanted this finalized. I'm at the end of the summer or something like that. There was something that was needed to be
End of the year.
end of this year. Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
hopefully the actual public hearings, October, December, that timeframe, but there'll be a couple more joint work sessions,
And then they'll fine tune it.
and then fine tuning and then,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we're going to move on to discussion items. And updates and reports. Grant updates.
yeah, so we have 2 grant updates. So the Oregon Parks and Rec grant for Arcadia Park. The city was selected for that grant.
Great.
So Bill, I think I haven't seen the contract, but they were sending that to Judy to move that forward. I think the goal is to move forward in the summer. That included a restroom, improvements to the surfaces of the tennis courts and a new fence, and I think a couple lights as well.
And haven't they talked about doing a pickleball, maybe doing pickleball there or something else at one time?
Yeah, I think that could, because it could be restriped maybe to have
Something,
both.
yeah.
But I'd have to check with Bill if you on that. And I think too, there was a little bit of internally we could only do it within the actual property boundaries, not in the right of way, but some improvements to the sidewalks within the park to be more ADA accessible. And the gate, and that also includes making sure that the gate entrances for the new fence are as well. And then not as good news, unfortunately, the Safe Routes to School grant, the city was not awarded that grant. There ended up being, I counted the number of applications today and I counted 56 and they awarded 26. So this ended up being pretty competitive. I thought we were in a good place after part 1 because they kind of gave you a general idea. But unfortunately, that one we weren't awarded. But it has been a pretty consistent grant program that comes up, so we can reapply.
That was my next question. When is it an annual or every other year?
I think it's every other year. So we can keep an eye out for when that comes about again, and work with the reviewers to see where we can improve. Some things in terms of the criteria, you're kind of, it's based on things like income. So you can't really change that necessarily, or if there was a crash recently. And so that criteria is, I mean, that's what they've created. to prioritize the projects. So we fortunately haven't had a major bike ped crash near the school, but we got in that section, it was 0 points.
But would they give you any kind of points for, let's say, increased truck traffic?
Yeah,
Something like that?
there was a section where we, I think we got the full points in that, but around the related to the truck route, we had that in the application, and then the average daily traffic is part of it. The count there, the average daily traffic is actually low in terms of their scale. But it's the truck traffic, I think, was a helpful part of the application. I haven't looked at the application in a little bit, but I'm trying to think through the other criteria. With that, it was the sidewalks on the east side of Sturdivant, and then across rock improvement at 10th Street there was the project, and then speed signs on each side, north and south side of the school entrance there. That was the full project. Our project did come in kind of high because it was in terms of cost, I think it was 1.8 million. So we were towards the max that you could ask for, which that itself that wasn't a criteria in terms of the ask, but if they get all of these larger grants, then they're able to fund less projects overall.
I would imagine maybe the number of the traffic count and maybe the number of students and such also maybe affects who gets the grants and who doesn't.
Yeah, and a number of students on free lunch was another criteria. And yeah, we just have to input the data that we're able to pull from the poll. So we can't manipulate that any.
Yeah.
So I have a question. This is Terry again. Was it rural competitive grants with rural, or was rural competing with urban on that grant?
So they're all the grants were together, but I think I want to say in terms of tiebreakers, there was some focus on rural, or it might have been communities that haven't received a grant before. Because there are some communities that apply for these frequently and are able to get them. But yeah, the rural question, I think so. There was more so in like a tiebreaker scenario. That's what they might look at as rural, and if you'd received a grant before. But I don't remember there being a checkbox where you'd get 10 points if you were less than 10,000, and then only get 5 if you're more or something. But that's maybe a good comment for future grants, I think.
Rural versus.
Yeah, having maybe that as a criteria, and I can look back through the criteria too.
That's a good point.
That's all I had for the grant updates.
Okay. Any other questions about grant updates? Okay. We have building permit and land use activity charts in front of us here.
Yeah, so this is more just for your information and if there's questions, but we ended up having, from the number of units, 8, and then 2 demos, so a net gain of 6, and that That doesn't include, because one of these permits was actually accounted for in a previous year, but the first permit on the table there, the conversion, that's not included in the 8, but we have 8 that were included there. Most of these are still in the process of being built, because there's that time from when the permit gets submitted and when the house is actually completed. So most of these are still in process, but there's progress being made, I think, on all of these. One of these we just received, which was a bottom floor conversion that we're calling an accessory dwelling unit. So that one, yeah, hasn't moved forward because it's the last one on the building permit table. So we just kind of received that permit.
Pending, I think it's the last one, right?
Yeah.
Pending.
Yeah, the pending, the very last one, yeah. So this is more for your information to have. And if there's any questions, I can answer those. If you have questions later, you can feel free to stop by the office or call.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other staff comments? Staff that wants to comment? Any commissioner comments? Okay, there being none, I will adjourn the meeting. And see you next month. Everybody be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Not.
That's not too bad.
I know, right?